we are ready to go. So I will now call this council meeting to order at 5 p.m. on October 15th. We'll start with the territorial acknowledgement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history and living culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. We recognize that these lands are the territories of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, collectively known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the keepers of this land. Georgian Bluffs is located on lands encompassed by treaties 45.5, 67, 72, 82, and 93. We reflect on our role as treaty people and the need to live in respect and peace and show respect to the First Peoples who inhabit these lands and waters. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Coburn, any discussion? Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Does any member have a pecuniary interest to declare? Seeing none, you may declare at any time throughout the meeting if one should arise. Moving on to the minutes of previous meetings, the recommendation is that the minutes contained herein be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Schuldeis, Councillor Winters, is there any discussion? I have one comment on those October 1st minutes. They show Councillor Thompson as being absent, but in effect on October 1st, he wasn't on council anymore. So we should remove that. If there's no other comments or discussion, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Does any member wish to make an announcement? Seeing none, we have no public hearings. For delegations on agenda items, any person who wishes to appear before council regarding an item on the agenda must register with the clerk's office. To register, you can complete the online delegation form at www.georgianbluffs.ca/delegations. Call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 603, or register in council chambers with the clerk prior to the meeting start time of 5 p.m. Moving on to consent agenda. Any member wish to pull items from the consent agenda? Councillor Winters?
9.1.3.
Anyone else? Councillor Schuldeis?
I'd like to pull 9.2.1.
Okay. And I would like to pull 9.3.5. So recommendation is that Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda, less items 9.1.3, 9.2.1, and 9.3.5. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Winters. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So, Councillor Winters.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just an interesting correspondence from the Township of Chatsworth about Township of Chatsworth wanting to get out of the BioGrid joint ownership. Wondering if at a future meeting we could get an update on where the decommissioning is and what that means and moving forward or funding options and things like that. I think that is a marriage that has come to the end. I don't think that surprises anybody. I think it's a good thing for Georgian Bluffs to take control back over that and move forward. But I think we need some information before it's totally dropped in our lap of where the decommissioning is, where we're at, time frame, and what the anticipated divorce, I guess, is for better words, what will happen. Amicable divorce, I guess, is the way it seems.
I think part of that, and I'm glad you pulled it because I was going to as well, part of that is they're wanting an appraisal done with, I'm taking it, they're asking to have the cost of that appraisal split both ways, like half and half.
But it's interesting, the cost of the appraisal after the decommissioning.
But I think we also need maybe some information on what all is written in that original contract about this. So perhaps what we're looking for is a staff report coming back in response to their letter.
Do that. So we'll bring back the report on the status update for the biodigester and
Okay, so we need a motion on that. So Councillor Winters will move, seconder, Councillor Coburn. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Next item, 9.2.1.
Sure, so thank you. I'd like to talk about the minutes from the Council Remuneration Committee on September 2nd. I noticed on page 2 of their meeting minutes, under section 6.1, I read, and I'll quote, "It was noted that some municipalities paid base salary only, while the Township of Georgian Bluff's compensation is a base salary plus per diems and benefits." I guess I'd like just to clarify with staff, the way I'm reading it, the committee is assuming that council receives benefits such as things like medications, prescriptions, eyeglasses. I don't believe that's true. In fact, at the start of my term, I asked that same question to staff, and I was told no. So I guess my question is, I'd like to clarify: is that true? Has something changed since the beginning of council? Do we now receive benefits? Is this true?
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, through you. No, I believe those benefits that they're speaking of relate to any pension that would be paid, as well as a councillor, you have certain insurance premiums that protect you and indemnify you with respect to council business. But that's very common for councillors to have
I guess,
across the board.
When I read the words benefits, that's completely different than what I'm hearing from you. I think just being more specific in that regard is important. But thank you for your for clarifying those details. So I appreciate it. That answers my question. Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say as well that they have received the specific reporting with the amounts broken out year over year to show what council is truly compensated for and what types of benefits they receive.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything further because that will still be a report coming back to council later.
Thank you.
And 9.3.5 is one that I pulled. First Nations Clean Water Act. I would like to show support for that because I think in this day and age in the province of Ontario, there should be no one who doesn't have clean water. So I would like to send support on that item, just for that reason. So if anyone else agrees with me, Deputy Mayor Pringle and Councillor Day, any further discussion? I will call the vote on that then, that we support that resolution. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I think that has us through consent agenda.
Question.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, through you. We just need to receive the September 2nd Council Remuneration Committee minutes for information.
Okay, so could I have a mover and a seconder for that item to receive those? Councillor Scholdes, Councillor Winters, any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, we are on to committee reports. Starting with Committee of the Whole, the recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on October 8th, 2025 be adopted, including recommendations COW 2025-039 to COW 2025-042, and that all actions contained therein be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Scholdes. I just have one comment on those minutes. Let me just pull it up here. It says members present, then it says members absent, and it lists Brian Anderson as Asset Management Coordinator being member absent. Could we move him down to staff maybe, unless he wants to be in council with us? Sorry, that's just, okay. There's no other discussion on those items. I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Lost. Where am I at on this, Charlotte? 11.2, information reports, we have none. 11.3, recommendation reports. The first one is, the recommendation is that the Source Protection Plan Part 4 Enforcement Transfer Agreement with Gray Sable Conservation Authority be endorsed, and that a bylaw be presented to adopt the agreement. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Day and Councillor Winters. Is anyone speaking to this report? Okay.
I can speak to that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. 5 years ago, we entered into an agreement with Gray Sable Conservation Authority to satisfy our Part 4 enforcement with respect to the regulation of the drinking water. The Act requires that we appoint a risk management official and inspectors by law, and that could be our conservation authority, or in our case, the Board of Health could also be could complete that task for us. So our last agreement we entered into is in November of 2020, and it's set to expire this November of 2020. So Gray Sable has reached out to us with a new agreement to continue. Of note, staff has no concerns about their ability to assume that responsibility again and continue with the enforcement and inspections that they're doing. The item of note, though, there is an increased financial impact this year. So what they have submitted to us is a $20,000 commitment over the 5-year period. So that ranges in payments from $3,500 up to $4,500, where in the past we would have seen costs between $1,600 and $1,700. So there is an increase in our commitment or responsibility for payment here over the 5 years, but feeling like we don't have a lot of flexibility with respect to who's going to complete this service for us in alternative. So recommendation from staff is to execute the agreement with Gray Sable despite the increased cost.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Day.
Given that the Clean Water Committee is from members from varying municipalities and water does not respect municipal borders, I feel like it's beneficial to us to maintain that inter-municipality relationship and look at water from a broader perspective than just what's exactly within the municipality. So I support this despite the unfortunate rise in costs, which I know are across the board so many places.
Any other comments? This is legislated that we have to have this done. Is it something we could do ourselves, or are we better paying Gray Sable to do it? I guess what I'm looking at is what would it cost us to provide that service for ourselves as compared to what Gray Sable is going to charge?
It's a good question. We could do some research into that. What I am to understand, though, is our options available to us are with Gray Sable Conservation Authority, with the public health, or another public body. But as I understand, I don't know that we can self-source that risk management.
Okay, I only ask that just because I think the public may wonder at that if we can't do it ourselves. Clerk.
Thank you. I was just going to note as well, in support of the CAO's comments, that within that risk management agreement, they do planning reviews and certain other things that are benefit to have external to our organization.
Okay, and that's good information to have as well. Councillor Coburn.
And through you, Mayor Carlton, are all of those pieces of that work mandatory or just some of it?
Thank you. Through you, our planner may be able to answer some of those questions a little bit better. The clean responsibilities under the Clean Water Act are prescribed, and I think some of the responsibilities within here are legislated, but with respect to planning, there have been some changes in legislation recently that may impact the services that they're able to provide us. I think there was a categorization that happened a little while ago, and some of those are maybe discretionary now, but I will invite the Director of Development Services to provide any additional comment.
Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, and through you, our clerk is correct. There's been quite a few legislative changes to the Conservation Authorities Act that do change the commenting powers of the conservation authorities. However, the source protection arm of the Conservation Authority, which is essentially a kind of an off-site duty that's simply housed with the Conservation Authority under the Clean Water Act, really hasn't changed that much. We still have a duty to consult with source protection group under the Clean Water Act to ensure that our wellhead areas for municipal water are protected. And the source protection arm of the GSCA does comment on every development application that that comes through or via the municipal, whether it's us or Sound or anyone else. And they do a lot of screening on our behalf of not only whether they're within the source protection areas. There's different levels of protection as you move away from your wellhead source, but they also screen for development types, and they provide some very good information to us as to the kind of developments that propose, whether it proposes a greater or lesser risk to the source protection areas.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Probably one of the cheaper services and value for our money that we can receive.
I think so as well. Okay, if there's no other comments, and I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is the deregistration of Plan 180. The recommendation is that council receive report DEV 2025-079, deregistration of Plan 180, Hydolph severance for information purposes, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enact a bylaw deeming Plan 180 to no longer be a registered plan of subdivision. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day, Councillor Schuldeis, and Michael, this one yours.
And thank you through you, Madam Mayor. As Councilor may recall, Mrs. Hydolph proposed to sever holdings that she and her family have in along Railroad 1 just west of Oxenden. And those lands were fairly substantial in size, approximately 10 hectares, 10, 11 hectares in size. And and this is going back to early 2024, they proposed to sever off approximately 4.16 hectares for residential use and retain approximately almost 7 hectares for also residential use for their own household. In doing that severance, it was quickly discovered that there was no plan of subdivision, Plan 180, which kind of a cottage lot subdivision that was registered in the very early 1900s, 1908, somewhere around that vintage. That plan also included Louise Street as an internal road to that plan, and we through council passed a bylaw deeming Louise Street to no longer be a rural lots that we found out we owned. We didn't know we owned it. We thought the IDOS owned it. We found out we owned it, and I just actually the other day, yesterday, received confirmation from our legal staff that that Louise Street matter has now been completely closed, and the Louise Street has been deeded back to the Hydolphs. So with that street now gone, it opens the avenue to now deregister Plan 180. So they can't come around and try to create 21.25 acre lots on their property. So this report speaks to the need for a deeming bylaw to essentially deregister Plan 180, so it's no longer a registered plan subdivision, and municipalities have the authority to do that. So this report and the associated bylaw are to essentially dissolve Plan 180, and then we can finalize the severance of the remaining lands.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And we have no unfinished business. Under new business, Councillor Coburn, I'm turning to you. The first one is corporate sponsorships.
I think we missed, maybe,
3, we did miss the bylaws for consideration.
Oh. Let's get that whole page quick. Okay, bylaws. First one, recommendation that bylaw 2025-063, being a bylaw to deem certain lots to no longer be registered lots on a plan of subdivision, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Coburn. There's no discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? Carried. The next item is, the recommendation is that bylaw 2025-064, being a bylaw to authorize a source protection plan risk management agreement with Grey Stubble Conservation Authority, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters, Councillor Day. There's no further discussion. I will call the vote. All in favor? Okay, now we have no unfinished business, and I will turn to Councillor Coburn.
thank you.
Thank you for catching the bylaws.
Just under 14.1, this was actually brought to my attention by a couple of businesses in Georgian Bluffs who saw that some of our logos and advertising had businesses attached to them. And they wondered where that was coming from, and is there any opportunity for other businesses, which got me to thinking and doing a little bit of reading. And it seems to me that other municipalities and cities that have a corporate sponsorship program have a policy that governs that program. And a policy, I think, is important. I'm hoping we have one, but if we don't, it should speak to transparency, so, and openness, so that all businesses can apply equally, and be given the same opportunity. But it's also about risk management and not, having businesses aligned with us if they don't align with our organizational values. The businesses that have stepped forward for 2025, I think are, generous and, quite likely amazing businesses. It's not about that. It's about having a policy that speaks to transparency and equal opportunity, and a little bit of risk management. So I guess my question is there a policy? Is on our website, do we have how much these businesses have donated and for what it is that they're donating? Is it for the whole year? Is it for certain events? What is it that's governing this process, or is it just kind of, we've just been kind of winging it for the past year? I'm curious.
I will turn to staff and
So I'll take this. I'm not really sure about the policy, and I think it's good for us to look into that. I remember this coming up a long time ago. We looked at corporate sponsorships in some of our facilities and what the right amount would be, and where people would be located based on their the amount that they're donating. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to sort of revisit that and have it grounded in a policy or some transparency. So I can't speak to what we are doing currently, but that's something we can bring back to you in the report as well.
Thank you. Owen Sound is one that I reviewed, and it's quite clear on the website who is sponsoring, what company is sponsoring what event, and at what amount, and it's got application periods and all of the rest of it. So that might be one of the models that you look at. So thank you. Do we
Okay.
need a motion?
that's what I was just going to ask the clerk. So we need a motion to that effect, asking for a report to be coming back. So you would move that? Councillor Schuldeis, any comments or questions from anyone else? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And the next item is about provincial grants. So back over to you, Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. again, not to be a dog with a bone, but I recall some months ago, or perhaps last year, where council was somewhat surprised that staff had gone ahead and applied for a grant for a specific initiative without the discussion happening at council. And I'm just hoping with the new grant opportunities that have come about recently that we can look to staff to ensure that that process is open and transparent, and that if it's appropriate for council to have some input into that as well. I don't think we need a motion.
Yeah, I think so it's good conversation. I'm curious about if there is, if there's some delegation or some direction that could be given to staff. So I think it's really important that we're not committing a grant application. I think in the spirit of what you're talking about, you don't want to see a grant application go out that's going to be a few $100,000 towards a big initiative. But at the same time, do you want to hear grant applications of less of a nominal amount that we can apply to almost I mean to say general, but normal operating costs? So if you're looking at, are we applying for a $5,000 grant that's going to help us defray costs of what we're already spending in operations? Is that something that you want staff time dedicated to bring here for a report? So just some direction about something in between there, if that makes sense.
Totally, and the answer is the former, not the latter.
Right.
So what I'm talking about is what's happened in the past on one occasion is a whole brand new initiative in the community that our hands became tied, whether we went ahead and approved it or not, because the grant application had gone in and was approved. So I guess it's just if we're new and for new projects that council hasn't had any discussion or input into.
Can you be more specific about which one you think that staff applied for?
I prefer not to because it's not a project that I'm opposed to. It was a new project that we had not discussed or committed to at council, and it's a few $100,000s of dollars.
If I may, Your Worship, I wonder if we're drawing a line between a new capital project expenditure as opposed to something that we could apply for that is already part of our operating budget. I mean, I wonder if that's where we draw the line in terms of what we bring as opposed to what we're doing as part of the operations.
Yep. I'm satisfied with that. I don't think we need to go any further with that.
Okay. Then the next item is 2025 community events.
So this is sort of two sides to a coin. We've had many successful and interesting community events in the last year and a half that are really pulling our community together. And I thank staff for their hard work on that. I'm wondering though, if we can get some kind of report on this past year's activities and events and specifically costs associated with this. So we don't see our treasurer here, but if it's already a budget line, community events, then I think we'll likely be getting that in time for the budget deliberations, but I do wonder if it's not, if we should be considering more information coming back to us about whether those events are successful. Are we going to continue with the same amount? How much is it costing us each year?
Does anyone have a response to that now, or do we want to ask for a report coming back? And will that be coming back as part of our preliminary talks going forward into budget?
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer this question, but I will try. I believe that there is some detail on community events, including spending. And there's also a business plan request for an increase to that budget as well. So I think those numbers will probably be available at budget. But if they are not, following this conversation, we can make sure that those numbers are readily available to council.
Yale?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think through you to council, you will see part of this conversation come forward in our budget deliberations. So some of you will know, some of you may not, that we're looking at we're approaching the 25th anniversary of amalgamation. So there'll be some significant celebration that's gonna come at a cost there. So that'll come forward in our budget deliberations for this year. And I think that you raise a good point. We can bring the other events as part of this, because while we won't have a 25th celebration every year, we do want to celebrate other events. So maybe in the years where we have a nominal or a significant event, our funding would be directed towards that. In our 26th year, maybe we have less investment, but we still maintain the activities. But it's a good idea to have that budget split out and see what we're getting for the value. So thank you for that.
Any motion needed here? This is just going to be information that comes forward. Okay. Does any member wish to provide a notice of motion or notice of discussion? Seeing none, we have no closed session, so confirming bylaw. Recommendation that bylaw number 2025-065, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on October 15th, 2025, be read first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Sholes, all in favor? That is carried. And adjournment. Council will meet in 29 minutes. Following this meeting, to hold a special council meeting to conduct the council vacancy process at 6 p.m. If there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Recommendation that the meeting be adjourned at 5:31 p.m. Deputy Mayor Pringle? Councillor Sholes? We can all stay. All in favor?